UDC.
So the agenda today is talk a little bit about AVANGRID. I'll have Brian come up here and talk about his business, obviously. And then, we started this journey with AVANGRID probably about 3 or 4 years ago to move them to utility network in a couple of their operating companies in Connecticut, and Massachusetts. So we started the journey. We just went live in production with the utility network back in January. And so now we're looking at the future roadmaps and what else can be done with the utility network for downstream applications. So anyway, we'll talk about the application developments and deployments that we've done over the last 6 months to a year. Also look at the advanced network management and talk about our editing in the utility network, and also a little bit about performance tuning, because we think that's kind of important for you guys to look at as well in deploying this. So anyway, this is us. I will turn this over to Brian. But thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Hopefully you get something out of this today, and appreciate your interest. So, Brian.
All right, thank you, Scott. Good morning, everybody. And I'm happy that we're following the kickoff session that preceded this. Hopefully, a number of you guys were able to attend that and kind of get that sense of what we're accomplishing as an industry, and we're happy to share a little bit about our story with you. So, as Scott mentioned, I'm Brian Horgan, our Senior Director of Gas Design and Delivery for all of our AvANGRID gas companies, which is 6 in total. And we're going to highlight our Connecticut and Massachusetts companies, SCG and Berkshire Gas, in particular because neither one had a GIS system, and our regulators were kind of pushing us to address that and bring those companies into the modern day. And so, working with UDC, we were able to finally address that, and one of the nice things was the timing set us up to kind of start in the utility network as opposed to doing a transition to it. So we're kind of are entering right at the right point, we feel, for that. And also what we found is allowed us to leverage what we've learned through that deployment to some of our other utilities that have had GIS. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dax so he can kind of explain that journey for you.
Thank you, Brian. So again, my name is Dax Wolfinger. So as Scott said, I'm a project manager on this project, and I'm just now becoming a solution engineer for UDC. And I've been in the GIS world for about 24 plus years, and 17 of those years I've been working for a small utility in Southern California as a GIS manager. In this project, like Brian was saying, we had a bunch of different tracks. We started off with the architecture of the UN, then we ended up going into the data side of things. So, like Brian said, they didn't have a GIS, so we really had to take multiple sources and figure out how we were going to put them into one spot. We had AutoCAD and microstations and PDFs and SAP information that we had to export, and spreadsheets and napkins with people that things on, right? So we took all that and we built that we put that in a geodatabase essentially. Then once we had the data and we had the model mapped out, then we ended up going into the application side of things. So that's when we started building all the web applications to bring out that data for the end users, right? To show them that they can access it a lot easier. And then we did some road mapping for them too around this data and where traffic works. So data conversion. So this is probably pretty consistent with how that works. The process for data conversion. We started off with the data modeling, the workshops. Now we did do a workshop. One of AvANGRID's task was to take all the operating companies. So they have 5 gas operating companies. They wanted to standardize their GIS data model. So these workshops really considered all 5 of them. Even though we were focusing specifically on SDG and DGC to implement the UN, we looked at every operating company and got their course, the input sources were Mylar maps, CAD design, a ton of information that we brought together, and we had a whole huge team of people. I think we had at one point we had 170 people do conversion, and they ended up converting every single piece of information that we had manually by hand, and then we ended up, once we had that converted, we put that in an asset package, and then that's when we started doing our own quality control on it. So it was quality control at the digitization side of things, and then we did quality control when it was an asset package also. And then we, of course, from the asset package, we built some networks to revalidate the information. And then from there, we were able to load the asset packages at the enterprise environment. So that was the data conversion side of things. So we had the data. Now, how do we get that out to our users, right? So we ended up building some GIS web viewers. So we did a web application through Esri, and we also did a mobile application using field maps. We did an outage support application. So that outage support application we were able to use Esri's out-of-the-box tracing capability to do isolation trades, get customer counts, and things like that. We did a CAD import-export tool, and we did that on ArcGIS Pro, and we also did it on a web version. We also did a Synergi extraction tool on ArcGIS Pro as an add-in. And then we did some dip reporting and week trends dashboards on top of that. And then we also we did some integrations to a version control system called ITS. So some examples. So this was the import-export CAD app functionality that we built. So again, as you may all see, it's the same as the web application. And you actually just take a polygon and you place it around there you want to export. You hit the export and it pulls it out into a DWG or a DGM, depending on what operating system you use at the time. And it brings over all the symbology and just how they have it standardized. And then we have the Synergi data. So again, very simple tool. And so what they were always using, at the time the Synergi was being maintained manually. And so what we ended up doing was we just created an add-in tool that just runs a Python script, exports it into a shape file, and then that engineer then imports it into their Synergi model. And then they can run their analysis as they needed to. And I have a little demo of that. I'm going to see how this works here. It's just a video, but I'm going to play it and I'm going to talk through it. So on the export tools, you're going to click on that, and this is the add-in button we built. The parameters, if you see, they're actually pointing at web services. So they're the UN service. And then what we're doing is we're putting in where do we want that export to go to. And then we're going to run it. So what it's doing is taking the whole data extract. It's the whole data set, essentially. And then we wait. And then it turns, right? And then they have to breathe silence. And we all wait patiently. And that's good. And then what happens is, what they usually do is they kind of bring that into a shape file just to make sure that all the data was extracted correctly and it looks good from that perspective. And that's what we're going to do here. So our Pro added the data input, and then there's the data that's brought in. And then that's how it looks in the Synergi model. So that's actually a regularization in the Synergi model. All right, so GIS web mobile viewers. So here are some examples of the web viewers that we did. So the two on the left are actually web applications. That's just the native Esri web application. And then the two on the right are actually field maps. So we did one of each. Most of the mobile workers are going to use the field maps. some mobile. There are some more functionality on the web application than there are on the field maps. So they can also be used on a tablet if they wanted. The leak survey, so we did a kind of a leak survey solution for them. So the leak survey, so this is just workforce scheduler. They're able to schedule, they do it by grids, so major and minor quads. So they're able to schedule those out to be surveyed. And then, so here's how the survey looks when it gets onto their tablet using Workforce from an Android device standpoint. And then when they get the assignment, they're able to start the work. Then what happens is that work will start to go into field maps, and then field maps will have a bunch of forms, leak survey forms like the AOC and the leak founds, and they want to capture the device that they're using, right, for auditing trails. And then we also have this is another example of a walking survey. And so on the left is, again, workforce and how we're using your workforce to do the assignments. And then on the right is actually the field maps application that we're finding that we're doing the leak surveys. On top of the leak survey, we did the operational dashboard, right? So as those are getting completed and or out of compliance, the dashboard will kind of reflect that in real time. And this is just the Esri native operational dashboard. And then we also have the historical dashboard. So now this is keeping all the audit history. So as cycles get completed year by year, they're able to mine that data down the road. So if they get audited for how many times something is surveyed, they're able to go through, see what has been surveyed, how often. We have some date filters in there where they can figure out what year, what month, what week. And then they can also export that. So if they need to send that to an auditor, they're able to export that into a CSV file so they can send that off to the people. And then, so right now, we currently, like we talked about, we're in production, we're working on it. Right now, SCG and UGC has, we have 2 QA QC people, and we have 14 editors working in the production environment. Right now, they're all doing backlog posting. So we have a demarcation date for the backlog. And so that's kind of an example of how it looks in ArcGIS Pro. And then here's the work order posting process. And I'm not going to go through everything. I'm going to do that time. But this is kind of the process that we developed for this work order posting. So remember, again, this is backlog. So what we did was we took a work package. So in the demarcation time frame, there might be multiple work assignments or jobs that were completed in that area. So what we did was spatially kind of combine that into one spot, one work order packet, and then we placed the names. We went through a process, placed the services, went through a QC process. Once that work package is complete, then we rec and post the version, and then we update the subnetworks and validate and make sure that they're built on the packet. And then, like Scott would say, the performance tuning, we can't stress this enough. If you do go to UN on a model, please put this in your scope. It's going to help you in the long run. In this case, we looked at system architecture, we looked at the server, we looked at the web adapters. That's what AVANGRID had in their architecture. We also looked at database things. And that's just a basic procedure, but it gets really into detail on indexes. When you publish UN services, how many instances you use, things like that. It even gets down to the ArcGIS Pro, the scales. I mean, most of you guys are probably already familiar with some of that, but you really need to look at the whole thing to make sure you get the most performance out of the UN. And then next steps. So we have SCG and UGC into the utility network. We're in production. We're maintaining it. The next phase is we're going to be doing a UN, or AvANGRID, we'll be doing a UN assessment planning for 3 of the operating companies that currently have GIS, Synergi, NICEAG, and UDC. So we're going to be doing that assessment so that they can put a roadmap together to eventually get that implemented into a UN also, with again a standard data model in thought. And then a track and trace would be the next that's in progress. So I think you guys are working on an RFP to go out for the track and trace initiative. Creating an outage dashboard, so we have that outage application. It's collecting that information for the outages. It's not just creating an outage dashboard. We're utility rolling blackout, and then some mutual aid. Alright, so I didn't show you the outage dashboard, the outage support web app. However, we are doing a demo, a live demo of that at our booth at 12:45 today. So everybody's more than welcome to come. So, any questions?
UDC